All right, good evening, Citadel fans. We welcome you to another edition of the head coach Brent Thompson radio show tonight from our brand new home, which is on Williman Street at Home Team Barbecue downtown. I didn't know if there would be a coach or a team in town this week to have a radio show, but we do have one tonight, and we'll continue our string of consecutive shows starting this evening. Good to have you alongside with us, whether you're in the audience here in the building tonight or whether you're listening on radio or watching on YouTube. We have all of those things covered. I am your host, Mike Legg, alongside the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, victorious again, and that is head coach Brent Thompson. Good to have you back in town, Coach.
Mike, it's good to be here. We just got back last night, but I tell you what, it's a pleasure being back in Charleston. And I think you did call it last week, as you said that we were going to be here on Wednesday. I said I didn't know how much we were going to be here, but I'll take your word for it. And when we made it back to town last night, I was happy to join you. I want to keep that consecutive streak alive.
You would have missed out on some good wings. They don't serve wings on the buses, do
No,
they?
they definitely don't. Not like this, at least.
Well, we want to get to a lot of different topics, and we've got an hour to do so, and so we'll jump right to it here. I will start off the show at with something that, as of the victory last week, we didn't have this information, but on Sunday morning we all learned something that we would rather not have had to learn, and that was that a former great Citadel Bulldog player lost his life in an automobile accident. I'm speaking about Mitchell Jeter. A lot of people know about that already. But there are some things about that I wanted to ask you, Coach. First of all, you guys were on the road still. You went west when I went east when you were departing the stadium the other evening. So I'll ask you how you found out about it, how you dealt with that, because it's certainly not something that you're a planner. You're a guy that is pretty organized. You like to have everything kind of laid out in front of you. That's not one of those that's in the manual, is it?
No, it was very difficult. In fact, we were in a staff meeting when I got a message from Coach Tesh up at James Madison. He had received word earlier that morning from Mitchell's high school coach in Rock Hill, stating that he had been killed in a car accident. And man, it was shocking. I had alerted the staff. We had spoke briefly about it, and then the team we were breaking down the film, so the team was still up sleeping at the time, and we went through our position meetings, and then we all got together as a special teams meeting just before we departed for our Sunday workout. And I had to inform the team and about half of them I played with him and had been there with him. So he was still very connected to the program, came back a lot. He had a great personality. It was a tremendous football player, but he was also one of those guys that you just enjoyed being around. And we're certainly sorry that he's going to be gone right now.
Is that one of those deals, because I mentioned it's not anything that's in the playbook, is that something where you personally have to kind of gather yourself for what you're going to say to the guys, or have you found over the years that, hey, we have to deliver bad news from time to time, I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to tell the guys the truth and we're going to get it out there?
Yeah, that's exactly the way that we approached it. Now, the good thing is we do travel with our team pastor, Rashawn Frost, who was there to kind of ease some of it and talk a little bit about grieving. So it's always good to have one of those guys that are professional in that realm to be able to handle it. But he even said, there's no manual for this, there's no book for this, but I'm here to talk and I'm here to listen. And if anybody would like to talk or anybody would like to, just get their feelings out, he had alerted the team that. So it was nice to have him around on an extended kind of travel trip that we were on.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, we'll talk about this, and then we'll take our first break of the show here and then come back and get to the game that you just played and the things that happened within it. But with regards to Mitchell, obviously he leaves behind a couple of little ones, I believe, a couple of girls that are 2 or younger. And so a lot of families and lives were affected by this. There were people in the other vehicle, obviously, as well. So are there things people are doing to try to help? Because that's what we do best. Whenever things happen, when tragedy strikes, we move forward, but we also move forward by helping. And so are there ways to help that are being talked about out there that we can get along?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it was started by Cam Mobley, who was a defensive lineman with Mitch. He was a defensive lineman our first year here, graduated our second year when we were here. But he and Dondre Copeland, who just graduated last year, they're very tight with Mitchell and Mitchell's family, and they started a youcaring.com It is the Mitchell Jeter Memorial Fund, and it is for his 2 daughters. They've already got almost their goal raised as of right now. They're just a few thousand short. And as you said, it's probably the Citadel community more than anybody, as I've seen more than any other community that I've been around. Always looks out for one of their own, and I think they've done a great job. And it looks like they've done a great job of helping so far. But if there's anything out there, that is youcaring.com, and that's the Mitchell Jeter Memorial Fund. And that was started by Cam Mobley and Dondre Copeland. So we're certainly going to help with that with the Citadel Football Association and with the Citadel Football as well. And we'll see what we can do to help them reach that goal. I'm
sure there are guys on the team that played with him, know him very well, very close to him, others that only know of him. And so guys will, I think I saw maybe a tweet early on Sunday from Russell Hubbs. Obviously, I think he was very close to him. And so I'm sure that will affect him going forward in terms of, trying to play for Mitchell Jeter as the season goes along here.
Yeah, we're going to carry Mitchell's jersey around with us, as we still have the one that he originally wore, the Citadel blue one. And we'll do a little bit of probably Parents Weekend. We'll do something for him to kind of memorialize him as well. And we'll make sure that his family has one of our helmets out there.
All right, well, bad news to start the week after. I mean, you start Sunday in your preparations for the next week. And so one of those things that we didn't necessarily want to hear, but that's something that we did have to hear. And so we'll move forward and hopefully make a big positive out of the fact that we can certainly help with Mitchell Jeter. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. And when we come back, we're going to jump right to it. We're going to talk about the team being on the road. It was a team without a home to a degree. They had to play a road game that they didn't plan on for the second consecutive year. And this time they go to Presbyterian. Was there a lot of improvement from week 1 to week 2? Those are the things that Coach and I will talk about when we come back to Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue downtown at 126 Williman Street on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
When you're feeling hungry, you don't want to mess around with a quarter-pound meat sandwich. Instead, eat the new half-pound roast beef sandwiches. 8 ounces of thinly sliced, tender roast beef. And if you really want a quarter pound of beef, that's cool. Just eat half of one of these. Arby's, we have the meats.
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Dad, grab something good. No junk food, please.
Go for the Trumu! It's delicious!
That's chocolate. But it's nutritious and contains no artificial growth hormones.
Trumu, a truly good thing anytime.
Back at Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue in the downtown location, 126 Williman. Welcome back with the head coach, Brent Thompson. I am your host, Mike Legg. Glad to have you with us for this Wednesday version of our show. And we'll be back here again on Wednesday of next week after perhaps the Citadel Bulldogs have gone to 3-0 on the year. They're ranked 13 in both of the polls in FCS football. And so moving up a bit where that is concerned. And so now it's on to ETSU to play. Bulldogs are going to be a while before they play another home game based on the way things have gone down with Hurricane Irma. I'll ask you this, Coach, and we'll talk about what your team did while they were on the road in just a little bit here. You had players affected by Hurricane Harvey. How many guys on your team were affected or their families were affected by this particular hurricane that hit Florida first when it came to the continental United States?
You know, we had a couple of guys that are from the Florida area, but most of them seem to be intact. We had Collie Williams, who's from the Daytona area. Everything seemed to be fine there. We had Quinlan Washington from the Buchholz High School up in the northern part. So everybody seemed to be doing okay with their families, and they all checked on them throughout the course of the weekend and through Monday. So in that regard, I thought we were, fairly lucky.
What about the whole being on the road scenario? Because it is, you can have last year to draw from, and you can make your plans, and you can go to certain places. You can call in favors and stuff like that. But it's a different deal. I would think it's difficult to get quality work done. Is that what you found?
It is, and we made the best of it, and it was the best scenario that we were put in. There's certain things that we can't control, and one of them is the weather, and we understand that. And, the players, we discussed it last week, is as far as the players are concerned, I always point to the 4th and the 5th year players and say, hey, these guys are on limited amount of games here, and you're going to take a game away from them. That's not fair. So we put it in that, and you put it in that realm. They understand it. We went through a lot. We went through a lot last year, too, we played on a day's notice last year when we were up there. We left on a Wednesday. We practiced on Tuesday, left on a Wednesday, played on a Thursday. This was a little bit more normal of a week for us. We just changed from a home game to an away game, which is a lot of transitioning. But really, when you've got a good support staff that we have, I thought it was about as seamless as it could be. And then, of course, we drew upon last year. We drew upon all of our resources that we used last year. The same place. We called up North Greenville. We called up Furman. They were out ahead of it. They were ready to open their doors to us. And then I was able to get in touch with Coach Sweeney, and he was able to open up his doors to us at Clemson. So everything was put in place. I had great assistants working together. The kids handled it extremely well. Do I feel like we're a little bit behind? I do, but we're slowly getting caught up. I thought we had a good day's practice today. We've got to kind of combine a couple of days here. Tuesdays and Wednesdays kind of mesh together today. Wednesday and Thursday will kind of mesh and blend together tomorrow. Because we're ready to go for Friday. We've got to travel. And like I told the kids, they're going to kick it off at 1 o'clock up there on Saturday, whether we're ready or not. So we better start to get ready.
Coach Sweeney called a while ago and said that he's going to put that indoor facility on the back of a flatbed truck. Bring it here. Wants to know if you're interested.
I would be more than interested in that. It's a great facility. Well done. Everything that you need. They rolled out the red carpet for us. They gave us access to the visitors' locker room. They gave us access to all of their laundering facilities, things that you don't think of, but showers, laundry, practice field. They even let us use their tackling donuts and those kind of things, and all their bags and everything. So I really couldn't have been more impressed with the way that he handled us being around. And I called him up in probably less than a day's notice, and he got it done. So I appreciate him and his staff.
Very nice. Are there things in the budget for you next year based on things you saw there that you want for yourself?
I don't know that budget's big enough, but I tell you, I would take one of those indoors. Now that I've been in one, I always thought, I don't need one of those. But really, now that you're in one, you're like, man, this thing is very convenient.
Yeah, very convenient indeed. Well, that's good stuff right there, because it's, these Furman, that's a rival. You're going to play Clemson later on this year. It wouldn't look good if they didn't help, but at the same time, I guess there's a reason. They don't have to roll out any red carpets for you guys.
I think they understand is if they were ever in that predicament, they would want somebody to reach out and help them. Also, it's really what intercollegiate athletics is all about. It's about helping one another. It's not necessarily about the coaches. It's about helping the kids. And you're allowing those kids prepare, and you're allowing the players prepare. So I think they all had the right mindset, and I greatly appreciate that.
So the team is back at home now. The campus opened today. You're going to get the guys back in classes tomorrow, and then leave at on Friday afternoon for the road trip. So there will be some structure back again for the guys real soon.
Yeah, we need to get back into a routine. We've got a travel routine. We've got a home routine. We've got a practice routine. Everything bases upon, our weekly routine, especially at the Citadel. We're creatures of habit there. And then football coaches are creatures of habit as well. So I thought that was important for us to get back to some sort of a routine before we left again. We came back yesterday. It was a travel day, so we didn't really have too much going on. So we treated today like a Tuesday, Wednesday combined. Tomorrow we'll treat like a Wednesday, Thursday combined and try to start to get ourselves ahead. And then we'll try to treat this as best we can as a normal travel trip, even though we've already been to the hotel. We've already been to East Tennessee. We know what it's all about up there. So, I think it'll work out well for us. I mean, we can't make any excuses for where we're at. We just got to deal with it.
In the game notes produced by Media Relations Zeke Beam this week, 499 program wins. The next one will be 500 in the Citadel program. That hopefully will come soon, but that's a big milestone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of a neat, I didn't know that. It's kind of neat just to be on board for that milestone for a program. That would be kind of fun for us. So hopefully, it does come pretty soon.
It will happen if the Bulldogs win at ETSU on Saturday. And we're going to get into a recap of the Presbyterian game when Coach and I come back in a moment. We're going to take a timeout from here at Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue downtown at 126 Williman Street. And we will get into the Presbyterian game recap when we come back in a minute. This is ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
TD Bank's new intern, Bart, is one of those robots from another bank. We're training him to bank human. Bart, why are you winding the clock back?
The clock stated 11:35 p.m., but they are still working.
The clock is fine. Our live customer service is available all night, and all day for that matter. He's learning.
At TD Bank, we do things differently.
Hello?
Like live customer service.
Hello?
24/7. Don't just bank. Bank human.
Since 2002, the lottery has helped award more than 1 million scholarships. So when you play, you're not just taking a chance. You're also giving one.
The great thing about an old truck is you can treat it like an old truck, which is exactly why you got a truck in the first place. It's not old, it's broken in. So keep it running longer, stronger, with quality parts and a whole lot of Napa know-how. That's not gonna buff out.
Welcome back to Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue downtown, 126 Williman Street. The Brent Thompson radio show going on tonight until 8 o'clock. The Citadel Bulldogs are 2-0 and ranked 13th no matter what poll you are looking at this particular week. And the game you just played, Presbyterian, I'll ask the question that I led into last week, Coach, and that is, coaches will often say that most improvement comes between week 1 and week 2 on the scoreboard, and the way the game kind of played its way out. Outside looking in, it certainly looked like you guys had a lot of improvement from week 1 to week 2. But from your eye and the eye of your assistant coaches and the charting that you do and the goals that you set, was there, in fact, a lot of improvement from week 1 to week 2?
Mike, I do think that we had some improvement there. There's still a long ways to go before we ever return to where we were at the end of last year, that's for sure. But as long as we keep improving, I'm okay with that. And as we get more and more into the season, we should continue to improve, as we've seen so many different live scenarios that it starts to help us out. But there's particular positions that are going to grow a little bit faster just due to the nature of the fact that they're a little bit younger. So the offensive line got a little bit better. They're still a little bit ways away. They can get a lot better. I like the progression of Jordan Black. I like the progression of the B-back position. They're a little bit young. The wide receivers are getting some of that as well. Some of those younger defensive linemen are getting in there. You saw John Wesley Whiteside in there making some plays. We got a little bit of time with our younger secondary guys that we've got to start to develop because we're going to get really old there. if we don't watch out. So we had some really good quality reps of guys that are going to play in the future. And those guys got better, but some of those older guys in there, and they worked their butts off early on, and then they were able to get out of there and kind of rest a little bit for the next week.
So let's walk our way through the Presbyterian game on the road this past Saturday. And really, this one looked like it was going to play out a lot like the previous week. You score about halfway through the first quarter. In this particular case, Dominique Allen with a 1-yard touchdown run, an 8-play, 52-yard drive, took 3:34 off the clock, and all of a sudden you're out 7-0. In this one, Dominique Allen would be used quite a bit on those short yardage touchdown situations.
The end zone, he knows how to square his shoulders, he knows how to get in there. A good drive, I thought, a good solid drive to start us off. We kept, really for the most part, we stayed on track all day. And that's what you're looking for as a play caller, especially. You're looking to stay on track, and you're looking to make sure that you just continue to get first downs, because eventually they'll pay dividends for you later on in the game.
I was going to go back a second here and mention that your first offensive series of the ball game, coming on the opening kickoff, you ended up punting the football away. But then 7 consecutive touchdown drives when you had the football. Noah Cannon is filing a grievance.
Well, I tell you what, it's always good to have a guy like Noah back there, because he can definitely flip the field position on you. But ideally, we would like to hold on to the ball, and I think that's what we did best probably. As you look at the whole time of possession, it was somewhere around 38 minutes, I believe, 35, 38 minutes. So it was one of those things where we were able to keep the ball, keep it away. You know, our defense played about 50 snaps, and we played about 80, 81 snaps on the offensive side, which is the way that we would all like to have it for sure. Means we're maintaining possession, means teams we're holding on to the football, and we're not giving up stupid penalties.
About 20 seconds after your touchdown from Dominique Allen that made it 7-0, you knew that Torrance Marable was a fast kid. And so he breaks free, ties the ball game up. And again, this one's still kind of looking like that previous game where you had a 7-7 ball game, and you're thinking, okay, we'll see how this is going to go here. And they jump out there. Fortunately for the rest of the ball game, clamped down on quite a bit, and they didn't get a whole lot else done offensively.
I tell you, he's explosive. Torrance is an explosive player. We saw that against Wake Forest. He ripped a 55-yarder off against Wake Forest, I believe. And that's what happens. You know, we got pushed out of a gap. We didn't really maintain a gap integrity in there. And the next thing you know, we get sealed off in there. And then we've got a chance to get him down the field. And we don't get an opportunity to get him down on the ground. But that's the way it goes. And, yeah, and at that point, there's a couple things that go through your mind as the head coach. Is this the kind of the straw that tips us over the fact that, hey, we had a good first drive here, but that was all we had left in the tank. How is this whole thing going to affect us? The fact that we turned a home game into a road game. But the thing that I was most impressed with was the way that our players responded, and we, of course, responded fairly well throughout the day.
It's a 7-7 ball game at that particular point, and the Bulldogs are in a little bit of a dogfight right there. They come right back, though, after that particular score and go on a double-digit play drive, 75 yards, 10 plays, capped off by a Lorenzo Ward touchdown. From 5 yards out. Again, a 10-play drive, 75 yards. You told me before that you practice multiple play drives, double-digit play drives.
We do, Mike. But, in fact, if you look even further, I believe in the fourth quarter, maybe it was our last possession. It was our second to last possession, actually. We had a longer drive than that. It was one of the longest I've ever seen. I don't know that I've ever had one that long. I think 12 to 14 has been my longest. I think that one was about 18 or 19. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. We have to practice those drives, and that's kind of what we do. It goes back to my opening comment, and that was keep the ball, keep our defense off the field, keep those guys fresh, frustrate their offense a little bit because they're not on the field at all. And that all just kind of plays into what we want in our whole game plan throughout the last 2 or 3 years.
That was at the end of the first quarter of play when this game got to 14-7 in favor of the Bulldogs. You would go on then to get the second quarter underway. And that's when you flipped quarterbacks. You moved Jordan Black into the lineup. If I remember right, this particular drive, it ended with a 57-yard touchdown pass to Raleigh Webb. That's one of those where you've set it up for a while, right? And then you're able to hit one over the top.
You know, I was looking to pull the trigger on that one probably about 2 or 3 plays before that. And finally I said, you know what, we just need to pull the trigger on it. They're getting really tight there. And certainly we did, and we made them pay for it, which was nice. The thing about Raleigh was he was able to get behind the secondary. The more impressive thing was Jordan's ball. I mean, sometimes it's hard to imagine because I've seen him throw some different kinds of balls in there, but that one was right on target. It was fairly much in stride right there, and that's what you need to do. And that's one thing that we've been lacking in our offense, and I thought we've been fairly productive over the last couple of years, but we haven't been as accurate or as productive in the passing game as I would like, and we've spent a lot of time working on it.
You, in this game, by the way, between your two quarterbacks, not a pass hit the ground, and not one went to the other side either. Black 3 for 3, Allen 1 for 1, so 4 for 4 for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns in the ball game. So yeah, that's pretty productive.
That's the way that it should look right there, Mike. We're a triple option offense. We got to take advantage of our one-on-ones. We got to throw the ball to the open receivers, and really the one that Jordan threw, the last one that he threw, was kind of a broken down play a little bit. He kind of got pushed out of the pocket, scrambled, found an open wide receiver, and he extended the life of a play. He's done it 2 weeks in a row, and that's what he brings. You know, he brings the ability to be able to scramble.
Then with 8:22 to go in the second quarter, an 18-yard touchdown pass from Black to Johnson, and that's Rod Johnson. That was a 6-play drive, 74. So at that point, we're looking at it up in the broadcast booth, and we're saying, okay, 2 drives, 74 yards apiece, a total of 10 plays. It was somewhat of a quick striking type of an offense, but identical distances on those drives, and all of a sudden you find yourself with about 8 minutes to go in the first half, up 28-7.
Yeah, our defense did a good job all day. They were getting them off the field. We were getting good field position again. And as soon as you cross into the 50, you can get a little bit more daring with your play calls. You can stay on track. You can pin them deep if you have to punt it. You can kick the field goal if you get close enough. So, or you can go for it on 4th down. It just gives you a lot more options when your defense is playing pretty good like they were, getting them off the field, getting us good field position. So we felt comfortable with where we were. And then that one, the touchdown to Rod that Jordan threw was a nice ball. It was probably in the ideal spot for that particular play. Another play is, you get them over playing certain things, and you try to isolate a certain guy, and that's all we did. Was we were able to isolate the corner a little bit there, get him in a run support role and take advantage of that and try to maintain and occupy the safety so that he can't get over the top. And then you rely on guys throwing and catching, and that's always a tough part for us. But throughout the course of the year, we've done a good job with it.
I don't recall whether we talked about this just sitting around talking or whether we spoke about this in an on-air type of a situation, but you had expressed a desire to get Brandon Rainey more involved from the B-back position. Early in the game, it was pretty obvious that was a goal or something that the opposition was giving you.
You need to make him more of a threat, because if the B-back is not a threat, you become very two-dimensional and sometimes even one-dimensional if you don't watch out. With this offense, if you're one-dimensional, you're going to struggle a little bit. So we needed to force it. We needed to make it a little bit of an issue, and some of that's on the offensive line. So I thought early on we were definitely going to, pound it up in the middle, make sure that we've got everybody keyed on the fullback a little bit. And then I do think Lorenzo comes in there and gives us a little bit of wiggle, gives us a little bit of an idea. He's a great football player, knows exactly where to go on everything. He's tough in there. So both of those guys combined, fullback by committee, I think we'll be just fine in there with what I saw on Saturday.
One more score before the end of the first half with 1:09 to go in the first half. An 11-play, 52-yard drive in 5:25, capped by Dominique Allen's 1-yard touchdown run. I felt like at the end of the first half, you had already done to their defense what you tend to see teams do mid-third quarter, and that is start to fade a little bit. I felt kind of bad for the PC defense. Not overly bad, but I felt a little bit bad for those guys because they were really on the field a ton in that first half.
Yeah, once again, it goes back to the defense, getting them off the field, getting their offense off the field, our offense maintaining possession of the ball, staying out of the penalty game, which I thought we did a good job, pounding the ball in the middle. And we probably had about 40-something offensive plays in the first half, which always helps. You need to wear them down. It was a hot day. I mean, it was pretty warm out there, so we've got to be able to do that in order to be successful.
At the end of the first half, the Citadel Bulldogs had the ball for around 20 minutes of the 30. So, I mean, you really wore those guys down. I mean, the numbers really show that.
That's a lot for any defense,
yeah.
Especially a younger defense. That's a lot. So, the game plan is working, fairly the way that it should at that point. And one of those things, man, when things come together.
Third quarter, Dominique Allen, another touchdown run, a 2-yard run. The extra point would fail on that. I thought at the time, wow, that was one. And 7:53 off the clock. First of all, I thought the game was going to be over in an hour and a half. It was
pretty close.
It was moving fast.
It was pretty close.
Not much to slow it down. And then the last drive, as Coach mentioned a while ago, 5:27 to go in the ball game. Brandon Rainey caught a 14-yard touchdown pass from Jordan Black. There's the 18-play, 92-yard drive that took 9:19 off the clock, and you're able to control the game. It didn't, always, if you're that far ahead too, it also takes people away from thinking that you're trying to run anything up, because you're controlling the pace of the game at that point.
That's right. And all we're trying to do is just execute and operate our offense. It's never my goal to ever run the score up on anybody. That's certainly not going to do anybody any good. But we want to make sure that we do maintain possession of the ball. We do want to score at the end of every drive. I mean, that's a goal for us. And there's certain things that you just want to get done. As any competitor out there, you want to make sure that we did get some good, valuable playing time for some younger guys. I think they ended the drive, and we started to mix some different A-backs in there and mix some different wide receivers in there. And, of course, Jordan played the majority of the end of the game there, so that he has some good game experience leading into this week.
After it was a 7-7 ball game, the Bulldogs rattle off 41 unanswered points, and they win the game to go to 2-0 and get victory number 499 in the program's history. When we come back, last half hour of the show coming at you, we'll spend a lot of time talking about some odds and ends from the Presbyterian game, individual stuff, but also get ourselves into previewing ETSU, which is the opponent this week on the road, 1 o'clock in Johnson City, Tennessee on Saturday afternoon. You're listening to the Brent Thompson Radio Show on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
Sorry, Dad.
Sure, you could get him a new car. You could also light a pile of money on fire. Because as long as Mr. It wasn't my fault takes the wheel on occasion, maintaining this car is your best option. So keep it running longer, stronger, with quality parts and a whole lot of Napa know-how.
Dad, where are you going?
Buying a home is a big financial decision, so you need a strong team working on your mortgage. That team is at South Atlantic Bank.
Decisions are made right here in our community by mortgage professionals who really know the Low Country.
South Atlantic Bank offers competitive rates and terms on loans for home purchase or refinance. If you need a mortgage loan, you need the mortgage loan professionals at South Atlantic Bank.
South Atlantic Bank Mortgage Group, providing the keys to home ownership.
Welcome back to Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue, downtown 126 Williman Street for the Brent Thompson Radio Show, live tonight until 8. And we are happy to have you with us to recap the Citadel Bulldogs' victory at Presbyterian 48-7. They will play at ETSU coming up this weekend in Johnson City, Tennessee. More about the Buccaneers in just a couple of moments. Couple of interesting things that I noticed in the game the other day. Coaches, you now have 4 interceptions from the defensive side of things. You've had 2 in each of the first 2 games. Last week, they were both on the tip drill. Kali Williams got his first of the season on a tip drill interception right there on your sideline.
Yeah, that was a tremendous play, too. He stayed with it. He made a great catch, and then he made a great return. I thought there was a chance that he was going to take it all the way back. He was setting the guy up. I was waiting for him to make a move. He made about 3 or 4 moves there, and then finally busted out of there. And there's a good chance once he gets it in his hands, he can go all the way. He's got such great ball skills. And then the most impressive one, but it didn't surprise me at all when I saw the ball batted up in the air, and Big John had a chance to catch that thing. I've seen him field a punt that was, a good 20, 30 feet up in the air. We do that kind of a little game at the end of the practice every now and then. He was one of those guys. He's got tremendous ball skills for a big fella. I knew he was going to catch that.
John Wesley Whiteside gets the interception. I did not, though, think that one was going all the way back.
No, not a chance. Not unless he flipped it to somebody else, that's for sure.
But there was more celebration for his interception than I've seen in a while. The guys really, the guys really got behind him and got on him, took him to the ground, so they were pretty pleased for the big guy.
He's a fan favorite. He's a team favorite. He's got such a great personality that it's always good to just kind of see a guy like that be able to make a play like that.
He did get the interception. Two guys got picks in the ball game, and the Citadel Bulldogs won the game by a count of 48-7. So let's look a little bit ahead here to what you'll face this week in East Tennessee State University. And I'll ask you this, first of all. They won their opening game of the year against Limestone College, then lost to James Madison, a team you know all very well, the defending national champions, the number one team in the country. So what did you see on film about ETSU, and what have you had conversations with Coach Houston or any of the other coaches about what ETSU was there? Anything that they care to share or that you've asked about?
Well, first of all, there's a couple things that you can gain from the film, and one is that they're a much improved team. They're playing with about the same guys. I think they only graduated 4 or 5 guys, being that's a new program.
Yeah,
so
quite a few.
When that happens, is you're naturally going to get better just from playing football and being older guys, and that's exactly what they've done. Especially on the defensive side, I think they've got some really good football players over there. The quarterback on the offensive side is a nice player, very efficient with the ball. The other thing that you notice about them is they're well coached. B, they do a great job of mixing their schemes up on offenses. He's got a way of being able to keep you off balance from week to week, as he knows what his tendencies are. He doesn't let you get onto his tendencies. He's fairly balanced. When you've been doing it as long as Coach Kane has, he's been able to, self-scout, do whatever it takes to kind of keep people off of him. And that's what he's done. So Coach Torbush does a great job of running that program. He's building it. I think they're doing a great job. I did speak to Coach Houston today. Now, I'm just kind of getting a feel for what the personnel look like out on the field. He said they're a great, sound defense. They've got some really good players. I really like the linebackers inside. Is that what really happened to them? And if you watch, I watched a special teams film today, was they just got themselves in some bad field position. JMU took one back to the house. They took I believe they took a punt back to the house on them, so that hurts. And then there was a couple of pretty big returns on them. But that's going to happen when you're facing a team like James Madison. Is they've got players, and when they get spaced out in special teams, they can hurt you, and that's where they do hurt you. And James Madison is a good football team. It wouldn't surprise me. Obviously Coach Houston's a great football coach. It wouldn't surprise me if they made another trip to the national championship.
Yeah. So ETSU drops that game 52-10. Carl Torbush has been around the block, obviously. He was a defensive coordinator at 6 different FBS schools: Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Kansas, Texas A&M, North Carolina, head coach at North Carolina and at Louisiana Tech. Is he, and I'm sure every coach has an ability to get into their players whenever they need to jump down their throats a little bit here, but when you're starting a program and when you need to be patient, is he the right guy temperament-wise? Did they make the right choice? It looks like they did to start up the program again.
There's no doubt in my mind. Is getting to know him, and really when I became the head coach last year and I went to my first conference meeting, he and I sat next to each other, and I really enjoyed talking to him. You've talked to a guy that has a resume that you would love to have. People where I'm at dream of those SEC schools and everything. He's been there and he's done that, so you have so much respect for him. And then I'm watching him build the program, and he's not building it with transfers, and he's not building it with quick fix. He's there for the long term. So with that regard, he's building it to sustain a lot of success there, which I think he will definitely reach.
Talk about the tall task that is to go from 2004 to 2014, no football. Nobody's even thinking about it.
Yeah, there's not a helmet. There's not a shoulder pad in sight. Things that you take for granted when you come into a job, and I don't know what that would be like. Here you are. It would be really, really nice, of course, to be able to sit there and design and have all those things at your fingertips. But on the other hand, that's a huge undertaking. You got to understand how many helmets does it take to field your first team, and then how do you project it all the way out? Then you got to think of stadium and your visitors' locker room as well as your home team locker room, and where's the radio guy going to sit? And those are all the things that you need to be consulted on as the head coach, because you probably know best, because you've been to every single stadium, and you've been to every single stadium in the SEC a couple times.
Sure.
So for that, I think he was a great fit to start the program, and I know eventually he'll probably leave it into somebody's hands that's well off and he'll retire out of there. But I thought he's going to definitely get that thing going in the right direction.
Spread offense, they're averaging 278 yards a game, 99 rushing, 179 passing. The quarterback that Coach was talking about is Austin Herink, and he completes 59% of his passes. He's thrown for all 357 of their yards. He has 3 TDs, 1 interception. Vincent Lowe is his top target, 8 catches and a touchdown. Their leading rusher has rushed for just 100 yards, Juwan Stinson. So in the first 2 ball games, they're not probably focused as much in a spread offense of running the football, but have teams like Coach Houston's made sure of that and made sure that they were a kind of a one-dimensional passing type of team.
Well, first of all, Coach Houston's defensive line is pretty good. They would match a lot of big-time schools. They would match a lot of FBS schools for their defensive line. So it's hard to gauge against that, So we're watching a lot of the Limestone game, and we're trying to figure out exactly apples to apples. I know Coach is dealing with a little bit different animal up there, but he's doing a good job of recruiting to that program, and probably off the success in the national championship. But I still think they do make an effort to run the football. He wants to be balanced. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be efficient, and the quarterback can be efficient. And they'll naturally progress and get a lot better when they start to get into Southern Conference play.
Oddly, the number of plays that they have called this year have been 59% run and 41% pass, but the yardage they get is totally different. 64% pass, 36% run. On the defensive side of things, a 3-4. They're allowing 324 yards a game, 158 rushing, 166 passing, and they're even on turnovers. They have 2 giveaways and 2 takeaways so far on the year. Thoughts about the defense that they'll put out there?
Yeah, I do think they're a much improved defense. They've got I love the linebackers. I think they're good, hard-nosed players, and they do a good job. They've got an understanding of the scheme. They do a couple of different, they're a base 3-4 team. They play a little bit of a 4-3, and they drop that guy down a little bit. So I think that they'll have a better understanding for the scheme this year. They'll do a couple things different. I expect it's going to be a tall task for our offense for sure.
You're playing in an almost brand new stadium. This will be just the second time that anybody's played on that. You'll be the first Southern Conference team to play on that field. That tells you, obviously, you start building new stadiums, you start putting it back on campus. There's a commitment to the program. You're not going to look down the road a couple of years and find that, okay, we're back in the situation we were in 03 where, okay, this is the end of the program here.
Yeah, they definitely did the right way. They definitely took all things into consideration. They had 9,000 at their first game against Limestone, so there's actually a fan base there that loves having football back, and East Tennessee is a good football area. And, of course, you're opening up a new stadium. Everything's nice, new, and fresh. It looks really nice on film. They were able to, fill out a pretty good stadium there. So I'm excited to play there, and I'm excited to see what the fan base really is.
Looking forward to the game coming up on Saturday. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the opponent for the weekend, ETSU, when Coach and I return to Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue downtown. We're at 126 Williman Street until 8 o'clock this evening on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
TD Bank's new intern, Bart, is one of those robots from another bank. We're training him to bank human.
Bart, why are you winding the clock back?
The clock stated 11:35 p.m., but they are still working.
The clock is fine. Our live customer service is available all night, and all day for that matter.
He's learning.
At TD Bank, we do things differently.
Hello?
Like live customer service.
Hello?
24/7. Don't just bank human.
Since 2002, the lottery has helped award more than 1 million scholarships. So when you play, you're not just taking a chance. You're also giving one.
We do it
great thing about an old truck is you can treat it like an old truck, which is exactly why you got a truck in the first place. It's not old, it's broken in. So keep it running longer, stronger, with quality parts and a whole lot of Napa know-how. That's not gonna buff out.
TD. Welcome back to Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue, downtown, 126 Williman Street for the Brent Thompson Radio Show. The coach and I here for another 15 minutes or so talking about Citadel football. After a victory over Presbyterian on the road, a 2-0 start for the Citadel Bulldogs, just like last year. They have a chance to go to 3-0 and get program victory number 500 on Saturday against ETSU. There were several things we talked about with regards to the Presbyterian game, Coach, and we noticed these things during the broadcast as well. And we see that you have the ability and you have used both quarterbacks quite a bit. And I don't know if you had determined on Saturday when you were going to put Jordan Black into the ballgame. Was that kind of the way that went? Did you decide at that point in the game that here is the point, regardless of where things are in the game, this is when Jordan's going to go into the football game for you?
No, we usually play it by ear. We just kind of have a feel for it. And when I think it's about time for him to go, that's when we go. As soon as I've got a handle on what they're doing, as soon as Dom's got a handle on what they're doing, we'll kind of make sure that we understand before he goes in the game, this is what we want to run with him. This is what he can handle in there. And he's done an absolutely great job of handling it in there. And it's more and more opening up the whole offense to him, but we're doing it slowly, and we're making sure that he understands exactly what he's seeing out there, and he's done a great job of it so far. So we're going to continue to stay with this rotation, give Dom, it's going to make Dom that much better come the third and the fourth quarter. If we can just keep, take a series or two off of him, it's certainly going to help us out throughout the year.
I wonder, and I know coaches hate it when media guys or radio guys ask questions like this, but does it ever become from a good problem to have to a tricky problem to have when you have two guys who can play and you can trust when they're in the lineup there?
It's all what you make of it, of course. We don't make a huge deal out of it. They both can do dynamic things for us differently. There's a comfort level there with Dominic for sure. There's a comfort level there with Jordan of what he can do. As long as we don't make it a big issue, they don't make it a big issue, and we've all got the same thing in mind, and that's that we want to win, and this is a win as a team, especially in our offense where we've got the ball being distributed amongst 5 or 6 guys.
I know you don't look too far ahead at all with most of these things. Do you foresee a circumstance down the road where Jordan is a better selection at the start of the ball game and you switch it up a little bit?
Probably not. Okay. I don't look that far down there, but it may get to that at some point, but I don't think so, There's really one thing nice about Jordan is I wouldn't have any problem starting him because he's very calm and cool in there. But we want to make sure that he sees what he's seeing in there, that he makes sure he knows what he's seeing in there before we put him into a tough situation that he may not be able to handle right away. But there's certain things that Dom can kind of get us out of a bad call and make sure that we have a good one.
Bright side of that whole thing is you've got Jordan as a junior, Jordan as a senior. Look at how much further ahead he'll be developmentally because he's getting reps.
You look at how much further he was from his sophomore year to his junior year, and you'd think he was a completely different guy. But we all got to keep in mind is that when we recruited Jordan a couple of years ago, is he played wide receiver, he played a little bit of A back there, he played quarterback for just about 1 year. We knew we could develop him into a quarterback. We didn't know how good of a quarterback, and certainly his development from his sophomore year to his junior year was just tremendous. He's got a sense of confidence about him. He's throwing the ball with a lot of confidence. So if he continues to do this, we'll be very comfortable with him next year. We only hope that the guy behind him can progress as fast as Jordan did.
Let's talk about some of the other guys. You've got the B-backs, as we talked about earlier. Brandon Rainey got a lot more time. You also use Lorenzo Ward. He scores a touchdown for you in a big spot in the game, the go-ahead touchdown, as it were. So how are you coming along at that particular position?
Getting better. Is I think we're doing a good job at our first level. We got to get our eyes to our second level blocks and have an idea, and that comes from reps. You need to see every single thing. We went back and we were watching the ETSU game from last year and just watching Renew hit the smallest, subtlest cut in there. He'd been doing it for 4 years at the time. he just kind of knows where those backside cuts are coming from, the backside blocks, the second level blocks are all coming from. You can sit there and tell them until you're blue in the face on film, hey, this is this guy's job, but they've got to see it, and they've got to see it over and over again, and you got to put him in those situations. And those guys will keep on getting better throughout the year, and those are the positions you'll see the drastic improvement from game 1 to 5 to 10 or 11, and hopefully beyond that.
I think I saw that you had at least 4 different guys running in and out with the wide receivers. LeBlanc starting, Webb starting, and of course you had the touchdown, the big touchdown, the pop over the top at least to Raleigh Webb. Let's go to that particular position. How many guys would you like to play on a regular day?
We play about 4. We carry about 5 just in case, but we like to have 4. We like to have 4 fresh bodies. You got to figure those guys are running downfield, whether they're blocking or whether they're running routes. They're running downfield 20, 30 yards, sometimes at a clip. So keeping those guys fresh, and we don't just ask them to go out there and cut off on the backside and lollygag around on the backside. We actually ask those guys to get downfield, cut off blocks, spring to score blocks all the way on the backside down the field. So those guys, we want them to be as fresh as possible on those hot days. We make sure that those guys stay as fresh as possible in there. So you'll see 4 of them. You'll see Kurt, and you'll see, and that was probably the whole reason why we took Logan from the A-back spot to the wide receiver spot, just to give us a little bit more depth. And he's played considerably, and he's gotten a lot better.
3 of the guys that are in that 4-man rotation did come from some other position.
Yeah, and that's the way you got to do it at wide receiver. Is Josh was the only one that was truly recruited as a running back, as a wide receiver. Kurt Nixon was recruited to play safety and punt returner for us, and he does return punch for us. Raleigh Webb was recruited on defense as a safety outside linebacker. We moved him over last year to kind of fill a need right there, and then Logan was recruited as kind of a utility player, and that's what he's been for us.
So the Citadel Bulldogs are ready to go to ETSU for another ball game. It'll be 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon to take on the ETSU Buccaneers. Let's go back to that young offensive line. Still hanging with the same 5, right?
Yeah, they're doing well. They're getting better. I thought they came off the ball well. There's certain techniques. Is you start to watch in those later drives, the 18 and the 19 play drives, I thought we got a little bit sloppy. We need to continue to do that, and I preach to those guys in practice. That's the whole reason why we've got to do double-digit racks in there. Otherwise, we won't be able to sustain those drives, and that's the secret to our success.
Have you noticed much about what else is going on around the league? Any big surprises? Wofford, for example, is 2-0, and they just so happen to have started the first 2 games of the year with league games, the way the schedule worked out.
Yeah, Wofford they're a team that finds a way to win games, and Mercer had them down early, and they were able to battle back. I think they scored 2 at the end to be able to go up and eventually take the lead in that game. So that's just one of those teams, and that's kind of what you expect out of a Coach Ayers coach team is they're going to find a way to move the ball. It's the same thing I always say is they're always good on defense. They're going to hang in the game there. And then on the offense is Coach Wade Lyon's going to find a way to move the ball, and he's going to score. I mean, that's just what happens. Is we saw it happen to us in the playoff game last year is, he'll hunt and peck until he finds what works, and he'll find your seam, and he'll expose you on it. And if you don't watch out, that's what happens. But he's had 2 tight ball games, Furman and Mercer. So not a big surprise, but yet that's a team that always gets better throughout the course of the year as well.
Not that the fan base that follows you is going to be all that sympathetic, but that's 2 close games Furman has played in. They lost to Wofford. They also lost to Elon. Surprised that they're 0-2, or are they getting close?
A little bit. The Elon loss kind of surprises you a little bit. They've got a new coach there. We don't know how much they've progressed, but the fact that they played Wofford so tight means that that's a pretty legitimate team. They're trying to run the ball. They're trying to do some of the same stuff that we do. They're trying to possess the ball, make themselves a little bit tougher on the defensive side, which I know that they're going to do. They're a well-coached team. Defensive coordinators are pretty good guys, so he's got an idea of what it takes. So no, not surprising that they're 0-2, but yet I thought they could have been at least 1-1, and of course they had a chance to beat Wofford.
You talked a little bit earlier about we've done a lot of speaking about the offensive side of things and guys from each individual position. So you've had 2 games where you would think, based on the way the score kind of played out, that if you were going to play guys that might play in those games and maybe none of the others, it just depends on your rotation, obviously, it may have been those first 2. So does that kind of mean the guys that we've seen so far are pretty much going to be it? Are you still holding on to some guys, perhaps?
No, I would say, especially on the defensive side, I think you've seen Jalen Barr, you've seen John Wesley Whiteside as a freshman, you've seen Wally Wilmore as a freshman. So all those guys are going to play for us. Offensively, I think there's still maybe 1 or 2 guys that we're still sitting on and holding on to, and not because of any particular reason other than the fact that we just kind of really want to keep polishing them to make sure that before they go in the game that they are game ready at that point.
Still looking at playing a lot of guys on the defensive front because you've played as many as 8 in the past, and that's a position that when you lose guys, that experience has really helped out when you've had the next year come around.
Absolutely, and we're still playing with some pretty good experienced guys in there, John, and Ken. But Jalen Williams, he hasn't played a whole lot for us, but he got a little bit of reps last year. Joseph Randolph, the same thing. He's getting good quality reps. And then we're starting to get those younger guys some reps, and we've got to continue to do that. We've got to continue to recruit defensive linemen because it's always going to be one of those positions that we need. We're going to rotate those guys out of there. The only thing that I would say was good last week is, unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of those guys a lot of reps because they played only about 50 snaps.
Yeah, it wasn't much in that game, 50 snaps. So was that kind of an ideal, if you were to take a cookie cutter and put that game onto any other opponent, was that kind of the ideal setup? Is that what you want to be week in, week out?
Yeah, that's been our game plan. That's what we do. Is we're not flashy. We just got to churn out yards. We got to maintain the possession of the football and take our shots. And the one thing that I always preach is make your shots count. And I thought over the past 2 games we've at least made those shots count. It's one thing to back them off of you and throw a long foul ball out there, but really for us is we want to take those long shots and make sure we hit home runs with them, which we have been able to do.
Other teams in the league, Samford is 2-0. They have had some close calls from time to time. That may change this week when they go to Georgia.
Yeah, watching them, they've had 2 Thursday night games, and they played they played the Kennesaw State game, which I was able to watch some of that, a back-and-forth high-scoring affair. And then they played West Alabama, which was a back-and-forth high-scoring affair as well. So it's interesting to see exactly. You won't get an idea after this week of where Samford really is. And we've got them after the bye, I believe. So we're waiting to see really what that's going to look like.
That was the game. You'll go back to a place where 2 years ago, when I saw that performance, I thought, this team is for real. Do you recall when that hit you guys as a staff? Was it that game?
Yeah, it probably was that game. We had a great defensive game that year. We had so many different turnovers, and we were able to convert it. Once again, we were getting the ball inside of the 50, which for us, we should be able to score in those situations, and that's exactly what happened. I think we had a scoop and score in that game as well. It was kind of a perfect storm kind of game. We just got out ahead of them and just kind of churned some clock at the end of the game. So, yeah, that was definitely a turning point game for us because that was a team that we had lost a close one to last year, and we were the year before that, and we were pretty devastated. I mean, shoot, they came back on the last drive and beat us that day.
Western Carolina is 1-1. One of those losses, the loss, was in Hawaii. Would you ever consider taking your team that far away from home?
I don't think so. I think you sacrifice too much when you do that, especially for us. I don't know that the payoff is worth that, to be honest with you. Unless you had a bye at the back end of it or something, but that's a difficult trip. Maybe at the end of the year, something like that. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of scenarios where I think that's a good idea for us.
That is a long haul. I mean, you get to California and you still got a long way to go to get to Hawaii.
I think they left on a Thursday, and here they are. They're technically playing Sunday morning our time at midnight, which is difficult. So you're not getting back until Monday. And that's a lot of stress to put your kids into that pressure cooker. I guess depending on what the game is after that, but I still think that's a tough one, and I think they had Davidson after that.
You have all of your, pretty much your future opponents for that type of a game set for quite a while now. You got Alabama, Georgia Tech. Is Clemson on the schedule, can you say, down the line outside of this season?
Yeah, I believe that one is set, and I think that has been released out there.
2020 or something.
I believe it is coming up here in a couple of years. I know we've got, you're right, we've got Alabama, we've got Georgia Tech, and then it may be back to Clemson.
Gotcha. Coach, wish you well when you go down there to your next ball game, and that next ball game will be ETSU playing in a brand new stadium. Glad you're home again. Sorry about the bad news about the former player, and hopefully this turns out to be a great week of preparation. You get victory number 3.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. It's good to be back, and we'll soon be taking off here again.
That is head coach Brent Thompson. I am Mike Legg. Mark Romness was our producer back in the studio, and we appreciate him very much. On Saturday at noon on the City, which is 102.1 FM, 92.1 FM, and 1450 AM, it's the broadcast from ETSU. High noon, the game kicks at 1 p.m. for the Citadel Bulldogs and the ETSU Buccaneers. That's going to do it from here. We want to thank Brian and Matt and Anne-Marie at Fiery Ron's Home Team Barbecue downtown at 126 Williman Street. You don't have to wait to come down here just because our show is here, come down here anytime and you won't be sorry at all. I'm head coach, for head coach Brent Thompson, I'm Mike Legg. Thanks very much for joining us, and go Bulldogs!